Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factorio Railworld. In the previous episode we were working on our new stone outpost and we cleared away Iron Outpost 1. The old rail branch has been removed and we've started working on a new station. Though I immediately noticed that I've messed things up because all the trains have had to stop and wait for me to put in a signal. The Megatrain was blocking them, but eventually they clear out. There was like a dozen trains in that particular pile-up, which is it's one of the cool things about Railworld. I've said it before, it was sort of my goal that I could have traffic jams with like 12 trains in them and stuff like that, and all the trains are actually doing some particular job and stuff. But yes, we send the Megatrain back to its normal station because I've decided to change things around a bit. I've had some time between episodes to think about how I'm going to design this, and I've decided to scale it down just a small amount. Basically, I'm going to have the branch that actually leads to the stations coming off the main line rather than like coming off the loop and weird stuff like that. Because it was going to be like two different things splitting off that were going to merge, and it was going to be a bit awkward. And you saw some of the awkwardness at the end of the last episode when I tried to bring the Megatrain to this station because I had to go and loop round up by the copper outpost, which is awkward, and the Megatrain would have to do that too. So rather than have to deal with that all the time, I decided to just change it so that the train can just go on the loop and then come off the loop and just be able to get onto the station as normal rather than having to do some weird 270-degree turn or whatever. So it's being scaled down, but it's still going to be more than twice as long, I think. Or maybe, I think at this point it's slightly less than twice as long as the original station, which I'm now, I guess, going to call the North Station, and this will be the South one. That's the sort of idea I've got, because I don't particularly intend to remove the old one yet. I think I'm just going to have that carry on as it is, but at some point we might sort of phase it out, depending on how things work out. Either way, I'm going to design this to have loads of capacity so that we could, if we so wanted to, have the old station removed and have this one replace it and still have plenty of space left for other things. It's going to become a sort of a more general hub station. Rather than just being for delivering to the main base, it's also going to store all sorts of random other trains like the Megatrain, the Minitrain, the Radar Train, and whatever other trains I continue to come up with. So we set up our first sort of branches to sort of follow the new structure I've got. Though really it's a very old structure. It's the original structure that we were using before because it's worked pretty well so far. I don't think we need like a two-line system or anything going on with like the main line travelling through here, because it's been two for ages with the little branch off that like the spare trains usually stored on. We do have the sort of the extra line system just beyond here, in between here and the circuit outpost, just so that trains can overtake each other and split off and do weird things, but it doesn't really seem to be that necessary at the end of the day. The trains are very unlikely to overtake each other, and they're never going to block the line, so that should all be fine. But I started sort of measuring out train lengths on this new section of track to work out how much we can store here, and an idea starts to form about how I can arrange things particularly, and what like lines here I should use for what purposes, because it's sort of important what the first few lines are, because they'll probably... It's more convenient to use them. I wouldn't want them to be empty because they were made for some weird purpose that I never bothered with. So what I decided is that these will be for sort of trains following the standard setup that we currently have on the North Station. So it will be able to house a train with two cargo wagons that can unload as it sees fit, and supply the main base. And what I decided to do is try and make it so that we can have trains queuing as well. One big problem we've always had with the main station is that it doesn't have any queuing space. It can have one train waiting, and beyond that, that one train will block all others, which is why I have like... it's one of the reasons that I have two separate stations for iron, and I used to have two separate stations for copper, is because like there were two trains, but and like that will be fine for one station, but the problem was that if one of them was waiting to park up, it would block all of the trains from entering all of the stations in the area. So the idea of this new setup is so that as well as having one train unloading, there will be enough room for another train to be sat behind it, waiting to move into position, and that way we can have two trains going to one station without it causing any trouble. So I start setting it up, and I realize that if I'm really careful with how I arrange things, and I like cram them in as much as possible, I can fit 2 of these stations on each row and still have it work out. And I can have this sort of splitting off thing in the middle, which I need so that trains can arrive at their particular station even if the other ones are filled. So this one will connect up to the main line, and it will also go through this middle one here. It's hard to sort of explain what I'm calling what. The main line is the bit that trains are always travelling on, and then we're going to say like the first line and the second line, or the top line and the bottom line so far. And then there's also a third line in place. There's a fourth line that's not actually connected to anything, and we'll probably just remove that later on and put something else in instead, because things will move around a bit. So we currently have all the trains on the second line. I've made a few more so that I can sort of get the measuring right, and I've managed to make it so that we can fit 4 trains in 2 separate stations on here, and they have the means to get on and off their individual bits without like being blocked by the other ones or blocking other ones particularly. It would only go wrong now if there were 3 trains trying to go to the same one station. So then we can set up this same setup on the first line as well, because that one's got a little bit more room in it. It's a little bit further along because of the way the rails all sort of branch off the main line. So what I do is I send them all around to the first line, and then we can work on the spacing there as well. There is no room for error here. I'm having to put the signals in such a way that the trains look like they're just connected to each other. They're so close, but it does work out. The annoying thing about all this, though, is that the developers are already sort of changing the train lengths for 0.13. This is the first time the spacing or anything of the wagons has been changed since they were first implemented. And when they were first implemented, it was very sort of wishy-washy, and the cargo wagons are all really weird lengths. It's like 6.6 or whatever squares long or something like that, as far as I can tell, just because of various different factors of like the spacing in between the cargo wagons and stuff, and it's led to all sorts of awkwardness. When they're like on horizontal lines, it works really well. They're all 7 long and it all lines up, I think. But when they're vertical, it goes very wrong. So they've been working on making it so they have the same length horizontally and vertically, which is a little bit awkward because of the angle that you view the game at. It's not like a full top-down thing. Everything's at a slight angle. So assemblers like fill a 3x3 space, but they aren't square if you look at them. Well, it sort of depends on how you look at them. There's sort of weirdness with the perspective to make things look certain ways. But basically it means that the trains are a little bit awkward. And they're making it so that the trains just slightly stretch when they go around corners in a way that hopefully you don't notice, though now I've pointed it out you will notice. And they've also made it so the cargo wagons are a more normal length, so it will all line up more. But I think they may now be 8 blocks long, which is going to completely ruin everything I have. So that'll be fun to deal with when it comes along, but that's a while away yet. It's I think a month and a half. No, it's like a month and a week according to their schedule, but then they may go over schedule because they usually do. It's sort of an optimistic goal of the 1st of June for the update to come out. And in the meantime, it's cool to make this stuff, and we'll see if we can still make it work in some way later on. But yes, we've been extending the lines along a lot more. We've now got a 3rd, 4th, and 5th line. I'm sort of starting to think about what is going to have what job. One of them will be the Megatrain line. We're going to bring that up in a minute and work things out with that. And then we'll have one that can probably fit the radar train and the Minitrain and stuff like that. Or maybe we'll just have 2 trains that have the same length as the radar train. There's all sorts of options. The Megatrain is sort of our limit, but I have a plan for how we can make bigger trains. Because I do suspect at some point we may need, well, I say need, we may want a bigger one eventually. But anyway, I sort of start properly designating the stations and sending the trains to the right places. So the 4 stations that we've got here, I've just named them South 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the moment, and they'll get proper designations later on. And then I sort of mess up this particular area of the network by like dumping all 4 of these trains into it at once to park them all in the new spare train station. So this now has the capacity for 4 trains, maybe a 5th if it's smaller than the other ones. And we could do some fancy messing about with signals to make it so that we can fit different length trains in different areas and still have it be efficient, but that's something to work out later on, probably after the train lengths have been changed. And there's a bit of leeway to just like turn that into something else later on, which is why It's the reason I put it in, because it's the spare train station. It can be wherever it wants to be, and it doesn't need much messing about to move. But one thing that does need a lot of messing about to move is the Megatrain station. I was going to leave this, but then I was reminded that you can just use blueprints to transfer this sort of system in its entirety. However, this does cause issues, and we will see how those issues are. But anyway, I copy it, I have a bit of a ponder. I suspect that at the moment I give the order, horrible things will happen, but I do it anyway, and I sort of I set that in motion. I get those all placed, and once I'm sure that it's all worked and it's not going to explode and annihilate itself, I delete the old station, with the idea that now all of these requester chests can be unloaded into requester chests in the new loading area, and everything will transfer over smoothly. And of course that is not at all what happens. So there were a couple of issues. I knew about some of them beforehand. I knew that placing the blueprint before I deleted the old station was a bad idea. But I was worried that it wouldn't work, and I wanted to make sure that the thing actually placed properly and that I wasn't just going to annihilate the Megatrain station and then have to either rebuild it or reload the save and start the episode over. So I placed the blueprint first, which meant that immediately the 500 logistics bots or so in the system were all given jobs in to load up the system, and some construction bots were given the job to build the requester chest. But there was a bit of a problem in that, because what happened was that these 500 bots, they all got jobs of taking things from the factory to load into the column. So immediately we're having a bunch of extra stuff being made in the factory that we don't need, and the stuff in the columns just end up being unloaded into storage chests. And then there was another issue that I didn't consider, of the fact that there wouldn't be any requester chests. There were 5 or something in the logistics network. They'd be built, but the other ones could not be moved until they'd been emptied, which would mean that it would mean huge amounts of work for the construction bots before the logistics bots could start to actually set up new chests. So that was one of the many problems, and just all sorts of horrible things started happening. You can see the storage chests start to get loaded with all sorts of random stuff. The factory starts going crazy. Circuits are flowing at ridiculous rates. The iron starts to run down massively, as just huge amounts of completely irrelevant items are built to be loaded into this new loading area, while the items that were supposed to be transferred are still sat in the old loading area, as the construction bots desperately try and deal with them. Because basically the construction bots are trying to empty out these chests, while the logistics bots are trying to fill the ones up here. And one of the problems is that we have less construction bots than logistics bots, so they can't possibly keep up with the rate of that things are moving. I've managed to sort of sort out the requester chest problem by just manually crafting a bunch and having my bots build them. But we start to have problems where the construction bots all stop because the storage chests are full, and then we have a power failure because the entire factory has sprung into life at once. That is a problem with the Megatrain. It is requesting pretty much every item that the factory builds, and so if I mess up and start having a whole new set of everything being requested, the factory's going to go at maximum, the maximum possible speed it can, and use up all its power ridiculously fast. So it was the middle of the night, there was no solar power being generated, and everything just cut out before the sun rose and started to sort of fix things a little bit again. So I'm just sort of watching in horror as everything goes horribly wrong, as stupid amounts of everything are built that I know are just going to end up being put into storage chests. And it's all just being built at full pelt, being loaded into the chests, while the stuff in the old chest is still just sat around. And I really wish I'd just done it properly. I should have just tested, before the episode, that this would work, and then I would have known it was okay to blueprint the area, delete it, wait for the entire thing to be unloaded, which would have taken a fair bit of time as it was, and then set up the construction of the new loading area. As it is, the damage is done now. All I can do is wait for the system to finish the job, to get the new section operational, the old section removed, And I try and sort of help it by adding more construction bots into the system, because it took me that long to realise that was one of the problems, that if we loaded a bunch more construction bots in, it would like cause the unloading to work quicker and stuff like that. But you can see that the circuit line is absolutely terrible. It's running really thin. There's a couple of times where it just runs out because the train hasn't arrived yet, and already the entire supply of circuits has been used up. And I can't go near the Megatrain, because as soon as I do, my own personal bots start unloading all the contents of the random chests into my inventory, which happens a couple of times before I learn my lesson and stay away. So I'm being loaded with random stuff as well. And there goes the power once again, this time even sooner. And after checking the power system, I realised that the solar panels were running at full capacity the entire day. They had no chance to finish loading the accumulators, so the accumulators ran out even quicker. And we can only hope that this whole thing calms down as soon as possible, and we can get the power system working well again. Because that's the thing, we never really properly fixed the power system. We kept adding in more solar panels and accumulators, but in the end, the reason it was fixed was because the factory simply ran out of things to do and wasn't using so much power anymore. Anyway, another problem that we have is that the construction bots have further to travel than the logistics bots. They're travelling from pretty much one end of the factory to the other. Like, the farthest reaches in the south, where the Megatrain is, all the way up to our storage chests, which are further away than a lot of our provider chests for random other stuff. So, as well as there being less construction bots working against them, they were also spending more time per item transporting things around. So I dumped a couple of storage chests right next to the Megatrain to get, to shorten their journey and try and help with things. But at this point, things are pretty much winding down. The Megatrain is mostly loaded, even though the old loading system is still being dealt with. And you can see, I think destroyer drone production may have actually stopped before, and now it's once again going crazy. That's sort of the worst of the problems. That's okay, because we calmed down we reined in the production of that anyway, and it wasn't that much of a problem. If some more, maybe you can see that the copper line is horrifically broken. It's sort of being polished off by the ammo production, which you can try and deal with. I go over and look at the storage chest, and there's all sorts of terrible things in there. There's bots in there as well that we could be using to try and help the situation, as well as loads of ammo and just every random thing you can think of that the Megatrain ever had on it. I think there's even vehicles and stuff in there. It's all a horrible mess. I regret this decision greatly. But I get the last of the provider chests in place. Not that they're particularly important at the moment. I sort of ignored those, and they hadn't been built till after the blueprint timed out, which shows how crazy things are going. I think for pretty much this entire second half of the episode, every single bot of every kind is doing one job or another. So that was a nice bit of activity for the factory to do for a while. Once again, we have a power failure. This one at pretty much the same time, maybe slightly later, suggesting that things are now improving a little bit. But I think that's the last time it gets quite so bad, as things calm down some more. So yes, we've finally got the entirety of the old loading system emptied out, but there's still a bit of activity going on as the bots calm down and deliver random materials around the factory to sort of allow the inserters and things to fill up again. But we get the Megatrain parked in place, and I'm very, very happy to see that I've not got the placement wrong by a square or anything like that. Everything lines up nicely, and that's all fine. And we have a new Megatrain station. And now I'm worried about what might happen in 0.13 if the Megatrain changes length, and I have to do this all over again. It won't be quite so bad though. I'll just have to move up about a dozen of the requester chests to a better position to make them all still line up, I think, and that will all be fine. But we go back down to these random storage chests we ended up placing here, turn them into active providers to try and get them sent to the main storage area, and also possibly get them put in other storage chests around the place that maybe not storage chests, but I'm now going to have to see about loading some of the contents of these chests back into inserters, and not into inserters, into assemblers and things like that. There's a bit of a rush to it because the inserters are going to be continuing to fill up with random stuff. Well, not particularly random stuff, with the stuff that they make, but we'll try and get that sorted quickly. But I imagine Like, I'd like to say this is going to take a long time to clean up, but I think it's worse than that. I think we will never quite be past this mess. We have, like, half a dozen chests full entirely of random stuff, and a lot of it I think is just going to never make it back into the necessary inserters and things like that. I think it's always going to be like just a mess of stuff now in our storage chest that we'll slowly try and use up over time. But there we go with another power failure. This time a lot better. I think I don't know if the solar panels managed to finish charging, but they definitely charged the accumulators a fair bit more than last time. But yes, we will make our way to the middle, finish for today, and I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.